Shields up, Iron Breakers. Rurikhan here, coming at you with another video, and today we're going to be talking about Monster Hunter World. More specifically, we're going to be talking about one of my Charge Blade builds. Now, a while back I held a poll where I asked you guys which weapon you wanted me to main next, and the Gun Lance won, but you guys also made a hefty amount of votes on the Charge Blade. So I figured that would be an interesting weapon to follow up with the Gun Lance. Therefore, today we're going to be talking about one of my builds. Now, this particular build is not necessarily my favorite build when it comes to the Charge Blade, but I wanted to illustrate this one first because I believe that this build is going to be way more popular. And I want people to see this build before I compare it with another build that I have set up for the Charge Blade, okay? So I know that some of you guys are going to see this particular build and you're going to go like, oh, look at Rurikhan just chasing after the meta. But trust me, you guys, it's going to get a whole lot better. I just want you guys to see this one build first, and then I want you to compare the two very different playstyles when I show you the other Charge Blade build, okay? So let's get this party started. The very first item that we have in this build, which is the basis of the whole build, is the Diablos Taranis 2, which is going to be, in my opinion, one of the more popular Charge Blades players will be using. That is because of the fact that this particular Charge Blade has the most attack of any Charge Blade, and on top of it, it also has a hidden element. And what does that mean? That means that essentially it counts as an Elementless weapon unless you use an Awakening skill. And for the purpose of this particular build, we are not going to be using an Awakening skill, and since this is an Elementalist weapon, you'll be able to use non-elemental boost in order to further increase the already staggering amount of damage this weapon does. So this is all about raw damage. The point of this particular build is going to be charge up your files, and as soon as your files are charged, your shield is charged, go ahead and just unleash everything on that big super amped elemental discharge and just watch the numbers fly, okay? The whole point of this build is building up into that super amped elemental discharge and unloading it on the monster repeatedly, okay? It's just all about massive brute punishment. However, an important thing about this particular build is that you will need to hit soft spots on the monsters, okay? Because this weapon has negative affinity, and if you are constantly hitting parts of the monster that are not weak, you are going to be not dealing as much damage as you should. So remember, with this particular build, hit the soft spots as much as possible, otherwise your damage is going to be very inconsistent, okay? So anyways, like I said, Diablos Taranis 2, that is the weapon, and that is the only weapon for this build, okay? No other weapon should be used in this particular build. Now, the next item is the Dragon King Eyepatch, also an extremely popular item because naturally it's got the Weakness Exploit skill. It's got level 2 of the Weakness Exploit skill, and it's just a really, really good item. Moving forward, we have the Dober Male Beta, which has attack boost level 2. Also an extremely popular item. You most likely have seen this item on a lot of builds. Now, moving a little bit forward here, we're going to see an item that is not as used in a lot of builds. At least I don't think it is. And it is the Lumu Vambrace's Alpha. Now, this gives you Tier 2 artillery. Now, for those of you that are not aware, artillery benefits not only gun lances, but also the Charge Blade file explosions. And since this build focuses on getting you to just like smash super elemental discharge onto the monsters, you want to max out that artillery skill, okay? The next item in the build is the Nergigante Coil, which is going to give you, again, attack boost level 2. And then we have the Dorogama Greaves Beta, which is going to give you capacity boost. Capacity boost is going to increase your file size by 1, essentially allowing you to have 6 files. Therefore, when you do your super amped elemental discharge, you're going to have an additional explosion coming out. And to top it off, this goes really well with the artillery because that explosion is also going to be, its damage is also going to be amplified by the artillery skill, essentially. And then, rounding this build out, we have Attack Charm level 3, giving you the attack boost level 3, which is pretty much going to ensure that you have maximum attack boost on this build. Like I said, this build is all about bringing you big numbers. Okay, guys? Now, when it comes to decorations, we have an artillery jewel, which I was lucky enough to finally get. I'm going to put that in the Dorogama Greaves. The artillery jewel essentially allows us to get our artillery skill up to level 3. Then on the Nergigante coil, I put a Tenderizer jewel 2, which is going to max out our weakness exploit skill. And then on the Dobermail, I have an enhancer jewel 2, but here, to be completely honest, you can put whatever you want. I just put an enhancer jewel because I have this socket in here and I don't have anything in particular that I want to put there. It's just a socket that is pretty much free. So whatever you want to put here, you're free to do. I basically put us with Power Prolonger, which is going to enable it's going to increase the duration that our shield stays powered up so that if you need to run around for a little bit, hopefully your shield will be powered up when it's time for you to unleash that super amped elemental discharge. Another couple of things that you can put on here that I can personally put on here would be a Destroyer Jewel for making it easier to break parts, a KO Jewel if you are planning on hitting the monster in the head, making it a little bit easier to potentially trigger KO, or even a Mighty Jewel, which would increase our affinity by 10% if we want to risk for more crits. But to be completely honest, you're not going to be critting that often with this particular build. Because you're going to be sitting at about 20% affinity if you do manage to hit the weak spots of the monster. So 20% affinity is not really something that you're going to be relying on crits that much, so don't worry too much about it. And then the Dragon King Eyepatch, I have the Elementless Jewel 2. Now this jewel is mandatory, okay? You need to have the Elementless Jewel in here because it is going to boost the amount of damage that the Diablos Taranis 2 is going to deal. Like I said, this build is all about big numbers, all about those big super amped elemental discharge numbers. And if you take a look at all of the skills that we're going to be getting with this set, once we combine everything that I've just mentioned, you're going to notice that we have Attack Boost level 7, which increases your attack by 21. Also grants you an additional 5% affinity, although the affinity is just a little bit of a side thing here, not something that I'm focusing on too hard. Then we got Weakness Exploit. The main purpose of Weakness Exploit level 3 is to make sure that you compensate for the tremendous amount of negative affinity on the weapon itself. If you cannot get Weakness Exploit to level 3, that is fine. Level 2 will still enable you to get great benefit out of this build. So Weakness Exploit level 3 is preferable because every now and then you will still get a crit, which is going to be additional damage, and it's only one more socket. But if you can't get it because you don't have the gem or you just don't have the gear to get it, don't worry about it. You can make this set work with only Weakness Exploit level 2, but you need at least Weakness Exploit level 2, which you can get by the Dragon King Eyepatch, okay? At least level 2, get it because it nullifies the negative affinity of the Diablos Taranis, okay? Then you got Artillery level 3, which is going to increase the power of each of our file explosions by 30%. Obviously, this is important. Then you got the Power Prolonger, which, like I said, this is optional and increases our duration of the powered up state of the shield by 10%. Not really a big deal, but just something that I put in there. Then you have Capacity Boost, increases the number of files to 6 so that you can have an additional explosion whenever you do Super Amped Elemental Discharge. And finally, the Non-Elemental Boost, which is going to raise your attack. If we look at the base stats here, you are looking at 1,040 attack. With, you will see obviously minus 25% affinity. Just remember, even though the affinity shows up as negative here, so long as you are hitting the weak spots of the monsters, you're still going to have positive affinity, so you don't have to worry too much about that. And basically just try it out for yourself if you have the items and tell me what you guys think about it. Personally, it is a fun way to play, but I think you guys are really going to have way more fun when I show you the elemental version of my Charge Blade build. Until then, thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.